Let me say something that might sting a little, but it might also set you free. The top 1% are not smarter. They are not more gifted. They were not born with some mystical advantage. They just did one thing most people never do. They removed the mental programming that keeps everyone else predictable. And the scary part, most people do not even realize they are being programmed. Stay with me, because in a few minutes, you are going to recognize the box. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Picture a fish swimming in water. It does not know it's in water because water is all it's ever known. Now, picture you living inside an invisible box of acceptable thinking. Not a prison with bars, more like a room with walls made of assumptions. You're allowed to think freely, but only within a carefully constructed range of acceptable interpretations, emotional reactions, and conclusions. And because everyone around you is in the same box, it feels like reality itself. And here's the twist. This is not a conspiracy. There is not a secret group sitting in a room deciding what you're allowed to think. That story is comforting because it gives you a villain, a bad guy. The truth is more fundamental than that. Civilization requires predictability. And this is the first cliffhanger. Power does not need to control you. It only needs to predict you. Obedience is messy. Obedience says, I tell you what to do and you comply because you're afraid. That requires punishment. And punishment is expensive. Predictability is elegant. Predictability says, I already know how you will react, so I can guide you. If I can forecast your emotional response, I don't need to force you. I can lead you without you noticing you are being led. And that's how power evolved. It started with violence. Disobey the king, you're punished. But constant violence creates martyrs. Resentment, rebellion. So societies discovered something far more efficient than force: belief systems. Once people internalize beliefs and defend them as their own, control becomes self-sustaining. That's when the system becomes sophisticated. Not when people are forced to obey, but when people defend the system that controls them. Programming itself is not evil. All societies program their members. We all agree murder is wrong. That's programming, and that's good programming. The danger is when programming is mistaken for reality itself. And that brings us to the real question. How do they keep the box invisible? Here comes the part that will change how you see everything. There are three main mechanisms: language, emotion, and identity. And they work together like a lock. One, language. It does not just describe reality. It defines what can be thought. If a concept cannot be named, it cannot be debated. If a question cannot be phrased, it cannot be asked. That's why taboo language exists. Most people think taboo language is about politeness. Don't say that, it's rude. But often it's something deeper. It makes certain ideas unthinkable by making them unspeakable. Have you ever had a thought you wouldn't even say out loud? Not because it was wrong, but because people you knew would label you for even asking. You didn't suppress it because you're weak. You suppressed it because your brain is trying to protect you from social consequences. That's programming running inside your mind. And language also frames perception. Freedom fighter or terrorist. Undocumented or illegal. Same reality, different emotional response. And once a frame is installed, it's hard to see outside it. But here's the cliffhanger. Even if language does not convince you, emotion will. Number two, emotion is faster than reason. When emotion activates, critical thinking goes quiet. That's not philosophy, that's brain physiology. Your nervous system reacts first, your mind justifies afterward. And that's why you can scroll past a headline and feel your body react before you even read it. Jaw tight, chest heavy, heart rate up. You think you're forming an opinion, but a lot of the time you're rationalizing an emotional reaction that was conditioned through repetition. In my line of work, this is called anchoring. A repeated stimulus becomes linked to a predictable emotional state. So with enough repetition, you stop thinking and start reacting. And here's how you know it's happening. You feel certain before you feel curious. Now, the deepest lock of all, identity. Because once something becomes identity, it becomes untouchable. So number 3, beliefs don't just live in your mind. They become who you are, your identity. I'm a good person who believes X. I'm an intelligent because I understand Y. So when a belief is challenged, it feels like you are being challenged. That's why people defend ideas even when those ideas harm them, because abandoning the belief would mean dismantling the self, and that's too painful for most people. So they reject new information, not because they're evil, but because their nervous system experiences it as an identity threat. Now add the final layer that makes the whole system self-enforcing: social enforcement. Modern control is horizontal. People police each other, friends, family, co-workers, online strangers. Human beings will tolerate almost anything to avoid social exile, because historically, being expelled from the tribe meant death. So certain beliefs become markers of group membership. And if you question them, you're not just wrong, you're other, you're unsafe, and most people will choose belonging over truth. We could see this very clearly in the times of COVID. If somebody decided not to get vaccinated, the pressure they faced from friends and family is a perfect example of social enforcement. And if you question them, you're not just wrong, you're other, you're unsafe, and most people will choose belonging over truth. Which brings us to the question everyone asks at this point. Is it possible to step outside of this? The honest answer, for most people, no. Because awareness has a cost. Stability is more comfortable than clarity. Belonging is more rewarding than truth. And once you see the box, you cannot unsee it. But if you're still here, you might be the kind of person who's willing to pay the price. So let me give you a path. Not to unprogram completely, because that's not realistic, but to become unprofitable to manipulate. So here's a 4-week framework. So you can switch from an automatic installation of values, beliefs, to a manual installation. So think of your mind like a computer. Right now, most minds auto-install narratives without challenging anything. The goal is not freedom from all systems. The goal is switching from automatic to manual. So nothing installs, no values, no belief without your permission. And this is what the top 1% learn. Pause, observe, choose. So here are the 4 phases. Week 1, notice how fast your mind labels things as good or evil. Don't suppress it, just delay the conclusion. Sit in, I don't know yet. That discomfort you feel, that's your psychological armor being temporarily removed. Week 2, replace villains with systems. Stop asking who is to blame and start asking, how does this system work? Look for incentives. Trace cause and effect. Example, instead of who's evil in this situation, ask what makes this behavior logical from their perspective. Not to excuse harm, but to see structure inside of stories. Week 3, detach your identity from beliefs. Hold beliefs temporarily. Practice arguing the opposite side in private, not to become indecisive, but to become flexible. Notice the tension in your body. That is identity confusion. Let it loosen. Week 4, speak less, signal less, observe more. This is strategic silence. Not because you're passive, but because your silence preserves freedom. Power speaks less, not more. Expression creates commitment, and commitment creates rigidity, and rigidity creates predictability, and predictability makes you controllable. If you do this, you won't become free, but you will see. You will notice when language is framing you, when emotion is hijacking you, when identity is locking you. You'll gain a pause, and that pause is power. But you may lose comfort, you may lose belonging, and I want to say this gently. This path is not superior, it's not heroic, it's simply different and very, very liberating. It feels like breaking the chains that have been controlling your life. Society needs believers to function. The only mistake is drifting unconsciously, never realizing you have been choosing the box by default. So here's where I'll end. You don't need to become cynical. You don't need to become detached. You don't need to fight the system. You just need to become aware. Because when you're aware, you stop reacting on command And when you stop reacting on command, you become a calmer presence in a noisy world. And that, my friend, is leadership. That's self-respect. That's independence. Not the loud kind, the steady kind. And if you're one of the people who chooses awareness, I want you to remember something. You, my friend, are not alone. There are more of us waking up every single day. And the future does not belong to the loudest voices. It belongs to the most regulated minds. If this message resonated with you, please share this with someone that it might help. And please hit like and subscribe. It really means a lot to me. Thank you, and see you in the next one.